Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye fans, to Punting is Winning, the All Iowa podcast. We are your hosts, JD and Keith. Sorry, a little
Hello.
tongue-tied there. Busy week in Hawkeye land. Ben finished up their season in the Big Ten tournament. Women invited to the NCAA tournament. We'll talk their seeding and some coaching news. Unless you've been living under a rock, you'll know what we're talking about. We'll go through that, and sounds like you've got some stats of where Iowa ranks compared to the rest of the nation in some categories this year for a 17 and 16 team. So let's dive right in. Let's get started with last week's question of the week. We asked, give us a movie that you have seen recently or that you've heard about that you would recommend to somebody, or you just thought was a good movie that people might like to watch. I think Complete Unknown came up as one of them, and The Postman.
Well, Complete Unknown is a complete unknown for me because I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, sounds like that's a fairly new one too. So
yeah, I think it's in theaters.
It's a complete unknown to me too. It might have to be something I'll look into though.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
What about you? What's some movies that you've seen recently or that you'd recommend to people?
Oh, I said a couple of them last week. The two Sicario movies were pretty good, and they're not new or anything. I've been watching more older movies lately, and I guess that none of that really. I have kind of an odd. I enjoy odd movies, kind of things that are different. I don't necessarily care for like the blood and the gore and the horror movies, and not my big. Yeah. I don't really care much for that personally, but I like to just hunker down and watch a Netflix movie every once in a while, and half the time I watch it, and then 2 hours later I even forgot what I watched. So if it's not really something that grabs me and really grabs my attention, it goes away.
I'm kind of the same way. Little ADD and the aspect of watching a movie, you got to have something else while you're doing it as well. So, but yeah, the series Reacher has returned, and if you haven't seen the movies, the Jack Reacher movies starring Tom Cruise, those are actually pretty good movies. I would recommend those.
Yeah, but I like the series too, with Alan Richardson.
The series compared to the book, he is definitely more in line with what the book is described him as. That's
a fun series to watch. I really enjoy it, and it only, you get maybe the first 2 or 3 episodes right off, but then you've got to watch every week as the episodes drop. Which, I'd rather just sit down and watch all of them all at once. I'm not really big on binging, but I do watch. But something that good, I would have a hard time not just watching it episode after episode.
Yeah, we've been kind of holding off on Reacher till most of those episodes drop, and we decided that we were going to start watching them today. So we got through the first 2 of season 3 today, and I didn't really want to stop and come record because I was like, I'm ready for episode 3 here.
Yeah.
Yep, got to save something for this week.
We just got done we just finished watching Landman. I know it's been out for a little while, but that's a good one too. I was never a Billy Bob Thornton fan, but I liked him in this.
I like Billy Bob Thornton. I think he's a pretty good underrated actor as far as the roles. He's kind of pigeonholed into some roles though too. But I enjoy him. We haven't watched that one yet, but it's on our list.
That one's highly recommended.
So we've been trying to get through our network shows first and catching everything up. So now that we're, for the most part, caught up with everything, a couple of shows that we're a little behind on, but we haven't watched any of them this season. So it's kind of a wait till they all drop, and then we'll binge it through the spring or summer and when there's really nothing else on. So
we anticipate the 1923s every Sunday, and we watch those. In fact, I watched it right before the women's selection show. got done with supper and threw that on and watched that, and then got the women's selection show going and watched that, and now here we are.
Yeah. Well, I know the wife wants me to watch Yellow Jackets and get caught up on that because she's been watching that, and
I've heard mixed
I
reviews.
need to get caught up. Huh?
I've heard mixed reviews.
It's different from what little I've seen of it. I've been trying to wait for the Wheel of Time seasons to drop lately so I can go back and watch those. So
yeah,
I got plenty to watch. And Shogun was another one that I had on my list that was a new series that came out, and there was another one that was on, I think, Paramount or Peacock that I think it was called For Those About to Die, set in the Roman arena, and that's one of them I want to watch too. So
yeah, you're kind of into that.
The Spartacus and the Rome series on HBO back when it was on. So yeah, I'm into that. That kind of stuff really fascinates me. So anyway, let's jump on into the actual content of this podcast, which is Iowa sports. Let's start with the men in the Big Ten tournament this week, coming off of a win and get in type of scenario against Nebraska. They played Wednesday against
Ohio State,
yeah.
Number 10 seed Ohio State.
And
yeah,
go ahead.
Iowa carried that momentum from a Sunday win over Nebraska, and they carried it right into Wednesday. And they took on 10 seeded Ohio State. Iowa was a 15 seed coming in, and Iowa was able to avenge an earlier season loss, but they took care of Ohio State in the tournament, 77-70. Iowa was led by Peyton Sanford, 17 points, Laje Dembele's 9 rebounds, and Josh Dix's 4 assists. Iowa shot 55% from the field, 42% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line. Both teams had 26 rebounds, and Iowa had 1 more turnover than Ohio State had, and Iowa had 11. I thought nice game from Brock Harding's 15 points coming off the bench. I know that, Josh Dix was right there with points too. They're right up there, kind of neck and neck, 15, 17, 16, 15 on down the line. And, hey, getting revenge on Ohio State is never a bad thing in my book.
No, and I think the dagger was the Brock Harding 3 there late in the game, and I think it was 72-70. And
he just turned the ball over, right?
Yeah, on that silly trying to make that jump pass and then didn't have any place to go with it, so he just tried to dribble it, and you can't do that. It's like, you had to feel bad about that because that's a 2-point game at that point, and they just fought their way back because I think Iowa had an 8-point lead, 8 or 9-point lead going in. And let it get trimmed to 2.
Yeah, so, and then he just hit that 3 and kind of put things back into a little more. No, it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was
a possession game at that point.
I would say I was comfortable by it, but yeah, and it was late.
Yeah.
So yeah, good game to get to move on.
Quite honestly, that's the game that held Ohio State out of the tournament, which they should have been out. There's no reason they should have been in. I mean, you can't lose to the last team in your conference and in the first round of your tournament and expect to get in, especially when you have a similar record as they do. And you might have some quad 1 wins in there, but 17 and 15 or whatever it is that they ended up, that's not good enough.
No, it's not. No, Ohio State would have had to make a run through the tournament a little bit. I think they'd had to have 3 wins, which would have put them probably at that point, the quarterfinals or semifinals?
Would have had to put them in the semis.
Yeah. So they would have had to, I think 20 wins gets them in, and I don't know what they finished with, but
I think 17.
17, yeah. So 3 more wins would have got them in, I think. Yeah. But that's Ohio State, and we are moving on to play the number 7 seed Illinois on Thursday. And Iowa kind of they were running really well with Illinois. I thought they were playing them really, really well in the first half. I thought it was kind of a nip and tuck, back and forth type of thing. Iowa would get a 6 or 7 point lead, then Illinois would fight back and tie it, and then maybe go ahead 2, and then Iowa would hit a 3. It was just kind of them back and forth, lead change after lead change. And, then in the second half, it was kind of more of it was a little of that back and forth again early in the second half. But then I think, as I watched Fran got two technicals right there in a row, and I think it was awful hard for them to kind of come back from that. I think it was a kind of an emotional thing for them. Teams can kind of go one way or the other. They can get down and kind of fade, or they can fight back. A lot of times, you see a coach get a technical and the team comes back and plays twice as hard and wins. I think this time it was just a serious issue of you're up against a team that's literally just better than you are. And, and you don't match up well with Illinois anyway. I'm not saying Illinois was heads and tails better than you, but you just don't match up. When you don't match up, that's what you have.
I mean, that was a defense optional type of game.
Yeah. That's why Iowa lost 106-94. So it was, I think they said it was the highest Big Ten tournament game ever.
200 points.
Yeah. So that ended Iowa's season, of course, the loss. But I'll go through the Iowa stats. Iowa's led once again by senior and last game of his Iowa career. Peyton Sanford's game had a 30 points. Elijah DeMele had 4 rebounds and Drew Thelwell had 6 assists. Iowa shot again 55% from the field, and even better than the night before, 46% from 3. However, when you only make 5 out of your 10 free throws, that tends to hurt you a little bit. Well,
you only go to the line 10 times, and they went to the line 30 times.
Yeah, that has a major advantage, doesn't it?
It's not a mystery as to why Fran got ejected in that game.
Well, you can't. Yeah,
he didn't say anything any worse than what any other coach has probably said in the game.
I'm sure Izzo said the same thing.
You can read lips. I think that was an official that he's had a run-in with in the past, and he had an axe to grind, and that was his opportunity to say, you know what? I think you're done after this game anyway, so I'm going to run you.
Yeah.
I get the last laugh.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Iowa ends the season at 17-16, so they did finish above 500. They were 7-13 in the regular season conference regular season, but if you count the tournament, they finished 8-14. I don't know. You want to talk about this game at all, or you just want to skip right to the heart of the discussion?
I don't know what there is to talk about. It's it was no defense played by either team.
No,
it just was a matter of there was a stretch in there where Iowa couldn't make the shots that Illinois was making, and that's what proved to be the difference. And it wasn't, it goes back to that situation where we've talked about it before. 4 shot selection sometimes. You're trying to be the hero, you're trying to hit the 3, and you've got to make it. No, you don't. Basically they weren't giving you best resistance in the lane either. If you had a chance to make a 5-foot, 10-foot pull-up jumper or whatever, go for it when you're not hitting your 3s. I mean, I know this Peyton Sanford was hitting 3s, but sometimes you just got to take and say, you know what? We're only down 6. We don't need a 3 here. I can give them a 2, and I get a little higher percentage shot. Even though, they were hitting their 3s, but Illinois they were getting shots from within 2 feet. Iowa was shooting shots from within 25 feet.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, I was just going to hit on that. Yeah,
that's a situation where you have to adjust.
Yeah, when you're getting basically 5-foot layups or 2-foot layups, just basically around the basket and making pretty high percentage shots, and then you've got Iowa and you're forcing them out to 21 feet plus, and they're shooting 3s, although they're making 42% of them.
46.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic shooting percentage for a 3, but you can't just constantly be giving up a 2, and then every once in a while hit a 3. It's just not, the math doesn't work.
And you can't get out rebounded as bad as they did. I mean, was it 18? Rebound margin 18 or 17, something like that?
I don't know why I didn't write that down. I should have written that part down.
38 to 20.
That could be.
It was bad. It was at one point. I remember it was like 34 or 35 to 15. I was like, wow. I know it's bad. So even when Illinois would miss a shot, they were getting the rebound and getting a second chance, and Iowa just wasn't. So,
So Iowa's bounced from the tournament, bounced from the season, as we find out later. But on Friday came the news that Iowa was parting ways with Fran McCaffery Fran was 297 wins and 207 losses at Iowa. Did I see this coming? Yeah, I did. I think we've said this 4 or 5 weeks ago. I said, I think Fran's done. You were a little hesitant, but then I think in the last week or two, you said, yeah, you think that's the same. He's going to be gone. We'll talk about this real quick because this is a situation where Iowa can go one of two ways. They can go the small school route, mid-major type route, and get a coach that's up and coming, similar to the Drake guy, Ben McCollum. You can go out and get a coach like Darren DeVries, who's been at West Virginia for 1 year. That's a pretty good buyout. Plus, you're talking about also owing $4.2 million to Fran to walk away, which you can pay over 3 years. That's part of the contract, and they probably will do that. I said this before, and I hope it doesn't happen. I hope they don't spend money on a search committee. I think knowing that this was probably headed this way, and Iowa knew it, I think it would be of her best opportunity would have been to get ahead of this and find names and, quietly put out feelers to who would be potentially interested, and work her list of names as she has them listed. I'm sure she does. She has a list of the names it'd be irresponsible for her as AD not to have, especially when this is potentially going to be coming, especially in the last 3 weeks to a month. I think it was pretty much a foregone conclusion. I think this is a necessary move for Iowa, and I'll give you a few reasons before we hit into the stats. I think record low attendance has a lot to do with it. You can't make a program exciting if you don't go out and try, and they didn't. And I think that the fans responded by not buying tickets or not showing up to games. And we talked about this a lot last week about Fran. Just we beat it to nauseum last week that he just didn't get out and do the rah thing for the program. He didn't go out and go to small towns and have little meetings. And I'm not saying that he has to do that, but if you want to keep this program alive and keep it ascending, those may be things you should have to do, or maybe other things that you don't want to do. Just sitting back and sitting at your desk and being Coach McCaffery and all I only do is coach basketball, that's only part of the job. The other part of the job is to promote the program. And I think if you start promoting the program and you get some energy behind you, then people are going to start opening their wallets for NIL, for tickets, for everything. And then you're going to start seeing people coming back. That's why I believe that a change was necessary. And I know he's been a great coach. He took this team from the doldrums of the Todd Licklider era, and he turned it around. He had All-Americans. He had Player of the Year candidate, or actually winner, and Garza. He had the Murray boys, but he never got past the second round of the tournament. That's disappointing when you have that kind of talent, especially when they're all on the same team. I mean, Garza and the two Murray boys played together in 1 year. Mm-hmm. So you've got that kind of talent, and you can't get past the second round. That's a problem. And, I think as an Iowa fan, I expect more from that. Maybe I'm spoiled from the Tom Davis era when, Iowa was pretty much a foregone conclusion every year. They were going to make the tournament. And I was only disappointed maybe once or twice in his entire regime that they didn't make the tournament. So, with me, I guess the expectation becomes a little bit more than some of the newer fans that just, were little kids when maybe Tom quit and then Nick Licklider and Alford and all them took over. So maybe they don't have the same expectations that I would have at my age.
Here's the gripe that I have about the whole situation is we talk about NIL and we talk about the budget that coaches have to work with. And we heard nothing but Iowa's a low budget team in the conference. And The resources just weren't there for Fran. And now all of a sudden they are for the new coach coming in. It's NIL's not going to be an issue for them. What's different? Why did you hamstring one coach to prop up another one? Is it just because you didn't like that coach? What? I don't know what it is. I'm just asking that question of where did all this mystery money come from that we didn't have before? Or did we have it before and we just didn't spend it?
I think we had it, and I'm pretty sure we have it. It became a situation where Coach McCaffery just didn't want to promote the program. He just didn't want to go out and do the little things that you have to do. And, I don't think Beth was forcing him to go out. He just, it's probably not part of his contract. And she just asked him politely, hey, can you take and go out and do some raw tours and get the energy back in this program? And he probably said, yeah, it's not in my contract. I don't think I want to do that. And I don't know that. I'm just speculating because he never did do it.
I tend to wonder if he was more of an old school type of coach where the whole NIL thing was something he just didn't want to buy into.
Just like Kirk Ferentz. I don't think any of them wanted to buy into it. And I'm wondering if it didn't come from the head of the program down and say, we can't control the NIL because that's a separate entity. So we don't want anything to do with it. If we can't control it, don't even talk about it. And I'm wondering if that's part of the situation with NIL is that because this is a private entity through Brad Heinrichs, that Iowa, even though he's working with Iowa.
Different. That's different though. We're talking not just talking Swarm. We're talking NIL in general. I mean, the Swarm is a part of it. The Swarm is the part of it, but the NIL in general is not just Brad Heinrichs. That's not just him. It's all these corporate businesses that want to promote. You get to promote their product and have Mark Gronowski come out and promote their new Chevy truck, whatever. That's completely separate from the Swarm. Swarm is
doesn't that go to the individual?
Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is because this whole pay to play was not part of something that they were used to because they're old school coaches. You see the guys that are succeeding in a roundabout way a little bit better today are the younger coaches. Yeah. The ones that don't have those old biases of, I don't really like the idea of paying players. I don't think it's right. So I'm not going to go out and, this kid's asking for $500,000 to come play for me. I'm not going to pay him that because I just don't think that's right. Well, the younger guys are saying, hey, if that's what it takes to win, all right, come on up. We got the money.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's part of it.
Yeah. But
that's kind of why when we go to this, when we start to talk a little bit about coaching and all that, I got a little different opinion on that.
Well, why don't you explain to me, because I don't know, if a player's coming in and they're thinking about transferring and Iowa's sitting there saying, yeah, we would definitely use you. We're weak in that spot. How are you going to come to him and say, if the kid comes and says, yeah, well, this XYZ team over here, I've already talked to them. They're offering $300,000. If you offer me $500, I will sign on the dotted line today. How do you come up with that money? If you're saying that the Swarm is only part of it, where does Iowa then say, we'll refer you to Brad Heinrichs, or does Iowa say, we'll figure out a way to come up with that money?
I don't know how that's handled. I just know that Swarm is not the sole income for NIL. That is just a part of it.
So you've got a kid that wants to come in for $500,000. Do you say, okay, but here's the deal. We'll give you the $500,000, but you're going to have to endorse Carl Chevrolet or
I think that's part of it.
Whatever. And that,
listening to Brad Heinrichs' interviews in the past, there's expectations put on these athletes of things that they have to do to earn that money. It's not just here's a handout we're going to put, and this is at Iowa. I'm not saying this is nationwide. This is at other schools because I'm sure other schools are just handing them a bag saying, there you go. Just, you don't even have to go to class. Just show up for basketball practice, whatever. I think it's a little bit different where you're saying, you're going to have to make public appearances. You're going to have to do some signing deals at Shields. You're going to have to do some deals over at the hospital,
right.
Things like that. And that's part of that NIL guaranteed money that Brad Heinrichs and the Swarm can give them. The unguaranteed stuff is, okay, I think they can go talk to Carl Chevrolet and say, okay, we've got this person. Like let's use Audi Crooks, because I see the Fairway commercial all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Fairway is not part of their collective. That's a corporate entity. So that's all separate. She's getting that on the side from whatever NIL deal she was getting through her collective. So that's kind of like the same deal with, I think it was Bryce Young at Alabama a couple of years back. He was on a national commercial for Chevy trucks. So there's money that he was getting that's outside of a collective, and that's part of the NIL too. So I think maybe that's a situation where Brad Heinrichs goes to the corporations and says, hey, we got a chance to get this kid into our program. I can give him this much in guaranteed funds that we have. Can you cover the rest in endorsement deals with your company? And let him, go on to talk about Poncheros, burritos, or whatever they are. And I think that's part of how that works. I'm not privy to that, so I don't know for a fact, but I'm guessing that that's how that works. But I do know for a fact that the Swarm is only a part of the NIL deal. That is not the sole NIL ticket that they sign or whatever it is. And they are, at least at Iowa, they are expected to live up to obligations to earn that money. It's not just here's a handout
and they should
enjoy your life.
Yes,
you've got to do certain things, community things, whatever it is.
It should never be just handing a bag of money to them.
I think we've had this conversation. We've talked about it in the past where we want to have that conversation more about the NIL and being more pay for play. What's to stop a corporation from saying, I'll give this guy $1 million to endorse my high-end Lexus company. Okay. All I have to do is put him on one billboard. And it's perfectly legal for him at that point. It's not just giving him money because you've used him for advertising. You've used his name, his image, or his likeness. And, I'm sure that happens a lot. And you could put that billboard out in the middle of BFE where nobody sees it, but it's up on a billboard and you've got proof of it. It's like having a receipt. When the IRS comes to audit you, here's my receipt. Which, let's be honest, the NCAA is not auditing them. There are probably a lot of situations where it's just cash under the table that they used to have to put in a McDonald's bag, and they just don't have to do it anymore.
Right.
So, that's a whole other show that we could talk ad nauseum about for an hour or more.
So let's get back to Fran McCaffery and part of the reasons why he was leaving. I'll go through some of the stats here. Here's what I did. I spent about an hour and maybe 15 minutes this afternoon going through stats. And this is NCAA stats. This is not just Big Ten, but this is all games, all teams. Up to yesterday morning when everything was tabulated up to the correct time at yesterday morning. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a stat.
Okay.
And then you give me where Iowa ranks nationally out of 355 Division I teams. Okay? Let's see how close you are. You don't know these because I haven't told you any of these.
No. How close do I get for grace?
Within 10%.
Okay.
Okay, so first stat, assist to turnover ratio.
Okay. You're not going to give me the stat first?
That's assist to turnover ratio. That's a stat.
Right. But you're not going to give me what the stats are in that category, right? I have to guess where I think they're at, and then you're going to tell me where they're at based on what they actually have. Oh, so that's going to make it even more difficult. Assist to turnover ratio. Iowa's a pretty consistent team. Assist to turnover ratio. I'm going to say out of 355 teams, they're probably about 43rd.
Second.
Second?
They are second. They are number 2. Okay, now how about just overall assists for a season? That's just this year now, people. So don't mix 22 and 23 and 23 and 24 into this deal.
I'm going to say number 4.
Number 3. Very good. Okay, bench points. Just a combined yearly bench points, players that came off the bench and how much they scored average for the year.
Out of 355 teams, I'm going to say they're probably about 290th.
85th.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't think they had that good of a bench.
Okay, how about blocks per game? Shot blocks per game.
160.
Number 70.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Effective field goal percentage.
They're going to be pretty high there. I'm going to say they're probably 7 or 8.
11th.
Okay.
So not too bad. Fast break points.
20th.
37. Field goal percentage.
18th.
13th.
Okay.
Field goal percentage defense.
344.
You're close. 338th.
Okay.
Out of 355. Fouls per game.
Fouls given or fouls that they've committed?
Fouls that they've committed.
Okay. Let's say they're probably around 75th.
58th.
Okay.
Free throw attempts per
That's
game.
still probably within 10%.
Yeah. Free throw attempts per game.
My guess is they're probably averaging about 22 free throws per game attempted. So that's probably going to be about 61st.
316th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because they're usually a team that attempts more free throws than the other team makes.
Not this year.
Okay.
Free throw percentage.
My guess is they had some bad games, so they're probably about 71%. So I'd say they're probably 123rd.
239th.
Wow.
I like this game. Okay, free throws made per game.
Well, 212.
313th.
Jeez.
Rebound margin.
Oh, God. 350th.
339th. Defensive rebounds per game.
They're a little better at defensive rebounds, so I'm going to say they're probably about 305.
283.
Okay.
Offensive rebounds per game.
355th.
303rd.
Because they're terrible offensive rebounding.
Total rebounds per game. Offensive and defensive combined. Total rebounds per game. So if you were thinking about it,
300.
320.
Okay.
Scoring defense.
352nd.
336th. Scoring margin.
Close. Scoring margin meaning
How many points did you score versus how many points the opponent scored for the season.
91st.
158th. Scoring offense.
22nd.
16th. Steals per game.
48th.
190.
Wow. I thought they had more than that.
3-point attempts per game.
I would say they're probably 19.
69th. 3-point percentage defense. Defending the three.
332.
241. 3-pointers per game. Offensive.
32nd.
31st. Very good. All right. I talked about assist to turnover. How about turnover margin? In other words, how many turnovers they have versus how many turnovers they force, basically. You remember, Iowa was a very good team about turnovers. They didn't turn it over a lot.
38th.
29th.
Okay.
So they did take care of the ball. I'll give them that. Okay, turnovers forced per game average.
42nd.
103rd. And then Iowa, how many turnovers did they have per game, national average? National
19.
Against the national. I just
say
told you
19.
they really did pretty good about hanging on to the ball.
Yeah, 19th out of 355.
20.
Okay.
Last one, winning percentage. Season. Yeah, I remember they ended up 17 and 16, so they were
I'm
a little better than half.
Probably 157.
181. Not too bad. So you did okay on some of them, and some of them you were a little bit off on, but that was all of them. So, when you talk about things, how they, one of the knocks on Fran, obviously, is he can coach offense like nobody else, but he could also not coach defense like anybody else. There's no defense at all. I mean, when you look at these defensive stats, field goal percentage, defense 338th. You go down here to rebounding. They were not a good rebounding team. 339th in rebound margins. Total rebounds per game, 320th. Offensive rebounds per game, 303rd. You're talking about this is 300 out of 355. Scoring defense, 336th. So yeah, I mean, let's look at the offensive categories. Assists to turnovers, number 2 in the nation. Assists, number 3. Effective field goal percentage, number 11. So they were very, very good on offense. They were just that bad on defense. And I think that's the knock on Fran is, have you ever known a team to win the NCAA tournament, or half of them to get into the NCAA tournament with that poor of a defense? You don't win with that poor of a defense, because how good. I mean, no matter how good you are offensively, you're going to run up against a team that's very good defensively.
Better.
Yeah, and you're going to lose because you can't play enough defense to keep the game close.
Yeah, you can take a team that's like 101st in total offense and you can be the number 11 total offensive team, but if their defense is top 50 and yours is 330th, it doesn't matter that they're 111th in total offense or whatever they are. Their offense is going to look like the Harlem Globetrotters against you.
Yeah,
and we saw that way too many times.
Yeah,
Guys, what was the old joke used to be? So what no name coming off the bench is going to light up Iowa this week?
Yep. Sat there and watched it many times.
Yeah.
What player is going to set their all-time career high tonight against Iowa?
Who's coming in struggling, shooting 1 for 20 or for the last 20 in the last 3 games from 3-point range is going to go 6 for 7?
Exactly. It just seems to happen.
They're shoot-around shots for them. Yeah.
Well, then we got the news on Saturday.
Defense is about effort, and they did not see the effort out of a whole lot of people.
No. Then we got the news on Saturday that Owen Freeman has decided to hit the transfer portal. And before you all get crazy, I think there will be more that'll do that. But I also think that there's a possibility that when Beth makes the decision on who she's going to hire, there's a possibility that they may come back. They may retract their transfer and say, no, I'm going to stay at Iowa because I like this guy as a coach. His philosophy is great. So, and unless they sign with another team, there's still that possibility that they could come back, if they like the new hire as the coach.
Well, and it could just be a matter of, it doesn't matter if they like the new hire as a coach or not. If Kansas comes calling and says, I'll give you $1.5 million to come play for me, Iowa's not going to be able to match that. And they're going to say, okay. And that's going to be your Owen Freeman's and your Josh Dix's and possibly a Bryce Sanford, who might be more of a $650,000-$700,000 guy somewhere.
I think Price stays because he's a Hawkeye through and through. He's an Iowan.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying that that's the kind of money that they would try to lure him away with.
I'm just going to go out on a limb. I'm guessing here. I have nothing to support this, just my eyesight and what I feel. I feel like Owen Freeman most likely gone. I think Josh Dix is just, maybe he's biding his time to see who Iowa gets as a coach, and then he decides if he's going to go, because I think he's probably at least thinking about it more than not thinking about it. Brock Harding is probably going to go wherever Owen Freeman goes. He just hasn't made that decision yet. But I don't see anybody other than that. I mean, maybe Seydou Traoré was not happy with his minutes this year. Maybe he doesn't see a winning team coming up. I think it's going to take time no matter who the coach is. If we lose a bunch of guys that were due to come back, and like, the Freemans, the Hardings, and Josh Dix, it could be a little bit rough next year and maybe even the year after. And you've also got to hang on to the guys that have been recruited in,
right,
that may decide, because the coach left, I'm not responsible for that now, and I can go anywhere.
Well, here's my caveat to that whole, people complain, oh, we don't want to lose these guys. Well, there's still a 17-16 team even with them. So is it really something where it's like, is it world shattering if they do leave? Yeah, you're probably going to have a down year or two to start with. We have a new coach, regardless of who it is, unless you've got somebody who's just, can go out and absolutely recruit the transfer portal and has the funds to be able to do it. And you can bring in basically a brand new team like Iowa State does every year.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you can do that, there's going to be a couple of down years before this coach gets his established recruits in, gets his system in, all that, whoever it may be. So is it really a disaster if Josh Dix leaves, or Owen Freeman leaves, or Brock Harding leaves, or Price Sanford leaves? Yeah, do I want to see them leave? No, I don't.
No.
But we're also talking about guys that came from a 17-16 team that you're going to have the same deficiencies with the next coach. They still don't know how to play defense. And do you think they're going to magically be taught how to play defense in the course of a couple months? Probably not. Defense is about effort. And if you don't get the effort out of them, hey, go play someplace else. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so here, let me ask you this question real quick. This is an off-the-cuff question. I haven't even asked you this before, but when do you think we'll see Iowa's next coach hired? You think it'll be after the tournament? Do you think it'll be next week?
It'll be before the tournament's over. It'll probably be after the first weekend at least.
You want to venture a guess?
My guess is by...
No, I mean, you want to guess who it's going to be?
By Tuesday afternoon of not this coming week, but a week from Tuesday.
Okay.
Because that will be the first day after the transfer portal opens. They'll have a coach in place by that first day.
Yeah.
Now, do I want to guess who I think it's going to be? I think it's going to be Darian DeVries. Do I think that's who it should be? No, I don't.
No, I don't either. And I read a story about the first call I think Beth Getz made was to Brad Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she was more calling him to gauge, not interest that he would coach, but if he thought there's somebody out there that could be available that is really quality, because he would know. He's been around a while and knows all the coaches, goes to all the coaching, meetings and all the stuff that, when they have the off season. So he knows who's got good philosophy, who's struggling, and who's really good that may be able to, that Iowa could lure away. So,
unless you can grab somehow manage to sway a very high profile Power 4 conference coach from wherever they're at, I want him to go someplace where you've got a young, energetic coach who is a pretty good recruiter, has a good eye for a talent, and
teaches defense,
knows how to coach defense, even if it's average defense.
Yeah.
Like we've said a million times, it's like we talk about the Iowa offense in football. If their offense can get under the 70 mark, with the defense that they have, they're going to be a very good team. While Iowa's, if Fran could have got his defensive effort into that 120 range,
yeah,
how
they'd have been.
Is this team 17-16? This team's probably 22-10. Or 22-11, whatever it is, and probably in the tournament. So I just want somebody who has. They don't have to have the great coaching pedigree, I want them to be successful where they've been, and I want them to be able to recruit, and I want them to have the energy, and I want them to be able to be charismatic enough to get these guys to come here. Because I think that's part of
woo the fans.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I think, based on what I see, I think the players absolutely love Fran.
Oh, yeah.
And that's great. And personally, I like Fran too. I don't have any ill will towards him. I just think it was time to jumpstart the team, the program. And, I didn't see, you could say he had injuries this year that he had dealt with. And a lot of teams deal with that, and they still made the tournament.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could give him the out of, okay, well, you had injuries. I'll give you one more year, but do you really see in 15 years that there's been no defense played? Do you really foresee that happening as just a light switch being turned on year 16? I don't. And I think that's what it comes down to is offensively. Yeah, we complain about it on the football side of how the offense is very boring and the defense is great. So the games become very boring and people get, who wants to watch a 7-3 defensive slugfest? Well, we had just the exact opposite in basketball. We had teams that could run up and down the court and light up the scoreboard, and there's still just as much apathy as there was for football's offense when it comes to the Iowa basketball defense. So just the fact about the football is the football could actually at least continue to win at a 60% or 66% clip most years.
Well, my thoughts on the whole process of eliminating or moving on from Fran is that, do you want to rebuild today or do you want to rebuild next year?
Yeah.
I want to rebuild today because then we're that much closer to being done rebuilding as we move forward. In other words, let's don't delay it one more year, because I don't think the team's going to be a whole lot better. Even if he retained everyone, I don't think the team's going to be that much better because they don't play defense and they don't rebound.
He did have a very solid recruiting class coming in,
but they're still kids. Like you said, Yeah. So to me, I'm thinking, like I said before, rebuild now, not rebuild next year or year after.
When you think about it, we have gone in basketball. We've gone from a defensive-oriented coach in Todd Licklider, who was the most boring coach to watch, to the most prolific offenses that Iowa has seen in years and couldn't play defense. You went from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
Granted, it was more fun to watch Fran's basketball than it was Todd Licklider's basketball teams. But in the grand scheme of it all, they both made the same number of Sweet 16s.
Yep. Except Fran had 15 years to do it, and Todd only had
a lot more years to do it. Yeah. So spin it how you want.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's talk about a team that did make the postseason.
Yeah, let's do that. We just sit back and the two of us, we watched the tournament selection show, and they had us wait until the very end. Of course they would. Iowa became a 6th seed, which is one better than I thought, which is good. They didn't do like they did last year and kind of put them in a tough bracket. I thought they actually had a pretty good draw this year. In their first round game on Saturday, they will play the 11th seeded Murray State. What are they called? The Racers?
Racers.
Yeah.
State Racers.
They are the MVC champions. And it was a 1-bid league, I believe.
Yep.
Murray State is 25-7. And I'll give you kind of a little synopsis of the teams that they lost to. They lost to LSU by 14, and they lost by 27 to Alabama. They lost to Belmont by 7. They lost to UIC by 9, University of Illinois, Chicago. Mm-hmm. Lost to Drake by 6. So that kind of gives you an idea of kind of how they matched up against the better teams that they played. Like, LSU is a pretty good team. They're 3 seed, I believe. They lost to them by 14. And Alabama, I'm not sure what seed they were, but they lost to them by 27. Even lost to Drake. They did beat Drake once and lost to him once. So it was like a 1-1 deal. But, and I was already beaten Drake. So what Iowa has to play in Oklahoma City against, Norman, Oklahoma, on Oklahoma's court. And if they win, chances are good that they will end up taking on Oklahoma in the second round. And I didn't pull any stats on Oklahoma because I think we should just go one step at a time before we get too far. Win the first one and worry about the second one. But yeah, I thought they did it right.
Yeah, I was sitting there getting to that last pod that they were picking there, and I was looking at it and I said, okay, well, I guarantee you that UConn's the number 2 seed in this bracket, so more than likely we're the 7, because I could feel that the committee was going to say, yeah, that game last year, we kind of want to see how that's going to turn out this year, because they're still thinking about that whole screen.
Foul, not foul.
They say was
thing.
not an illegal screen. That was.
It was.
Same thing that happened against UCLA that didn't get called right. But anyway, I thought they're going to do that to us. I said it to my wife when we were watching, and she's like, "You think?" And I said, and then they said 6 seed Iowa, and I was like, "Wow, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't try to, bend them over and forget the lubricant."
Yeah, well, like last year, but even though they managed to make it to the championship game, they could have had a little easier run, I thought. But
yeah,
I don't know. We'll watch. We'll hope and pray that they get through the first round and second round, and maybe they could get to see would it be UConn after that? Probably, wouldn't
it? They would have to get to.
They have to beat Murray and then Murray State and Oklahoma to get to.
Yeah, they could get to UConn if UConn continues to win. Obviously, the odds are them losing is very slim, but it happened.
Right.
Upsets happen. That's why they're called upsets. So yeah, we'll keep watching on that, and I think there's a very realistic chance that Iowa could make a Sweet 16. But there's also a very realistic chance that they get bounced in the second round. So just depends on what team shows up. The way they're playing lately, I think they have a very good chance of making the Sweet 16.
I agree. But you just never know when the tournament hits. Strange things happen. People get tight. They just don't shoot like they usually do. And I hope Iowa's to the point where they're past all that. But strange arena. Ball bounces differently off the floor down there. I don't know. That's why they play them. They don't just.
They're shooting in their home gym too. So
they don't just pencil whip them through. We want to make an imaginary. Who's going to win? Let's do it. But if you want to make it right, let's let them play it. So that's what they do.
All right. So good luck to the women this coming. I don't know. I didn't catch a time when they were playing.
I don't think the time was released yet.
I think TBD was on that still. So
yeah, but it is Saturday.
I'm pretty sure that they don't play until like Friday or Saturday.
Well, they do play Saturday.
I think they play Friday. Oh, they do play Saturday. So it'll be
Saturday's the first game.
Okay, so
I did notice that.
Okay.
Good. You want to move over to baseball?
Yeah, let's talk a little baseball.
It was a good week for baseball. Iowa went 3-1 this week, 16-1 win over Augustana on Tuesday. Then they lost the first game in extra innings to Michigan State, 12-8. Then they came back and won game 2, 7-3, and then won game 3, 10-0 in 7. And they do take the series. Iowa's now 10-8 overall and 4-2 in conference. This week they have home games on Tuesday against the University of Illinois Chicago, and then a weekend conference set with Ohio State in Iowa City, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They have a 3-game set with Ohio State.
Okay.
But they're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I listened to, on Saturday, down at the folks' house, we were kind of keeping an eye on the baseball scores. And, it was like, they were up like 8-0 in the second inning. I was like, wow. But I said, with the way their bullpen plays sometimes, I wouldn't count 8-0 being a lock by any means. But they ended up, 10 running out of 7. That's a good deal. And then the softball team did pretty well, too.
The softball team did even better. They had a 4-0 week.
Nice.
Iowa swept a doubleheader with St. Thomas in Iowa City, 3-1 and 1-0. And then they went to Bloomington, Indiana to face the Hoosiers, winning game 1, 7-6 and game 2, 6-5. Iowa softball now returns to Iowa City and plays UCLA on Saturday, Sunday, the 22nd and 23rd. that's not going to be easy. UCLA always puts out a good softball team.
Yeah.
Iowa's 18-8 overall and 2-0 in the conference. Good luck to the girls softball team against UCLA. Let's see how they do.
Yeah.
Be a fun one to watch.
I need to try to get an idea of where I can get to Iowa City and catch a baseball or softball game.
Yeah, that'd be good. This week would be a good one because you could hit baseball and softball probably.
Yeah.
But it'd have to be on a Saturday. And I don't know. They probably play at the same time, too. I wouldn't know that.
Yeah, I would imagine.
That's all I have for this week. If you have something you want to talk about, something to get off your chest, go ahead.
No, I just I hope that the coach gets put in place sooner rather than later. I think that's a necessity. You said something about using a search committee. I think she's had a plan in place for probably the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I would imagine a search committee has been approached. Not that and you don't frown on the search committee. It's not so much that they're out there searching for names. It's they're handling the paperwork and the bureaucracy of a lot of it. Setting up the
they're
interviews,
usually
talking to the
pretty
agents, all that. Kind of
expensive.
Yeah, but sometimes it's a necessity so that you can focus on other things and focus on your list. So I wouldn't be surprised if the search committee's already been established and been in place for a few weeks, and that this process has been kind of in the works and in the background for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would have less likelihood of thinking that had it been, 2 or 3 days later that Fran was let go, but it was the next day. And that tells me you've already had time to get your ducks in a row, because you're not going to fire somebody unless you've got your ducks in a row.
Right. And I think, there's a lot of scrutiny on Beth on this hire. This is going to be the one that marks her. I mean, obviously she's hired Jan Jensen. That was a no-brainer. I mean, she didn't hire her, she'd probably be out. But this is the one that's going to really make or break her here in Iowa. I hope she does well. I hope she gets a good hire.
She does well, and she'll be the one that gets to replace all the big sports coaches at some point, probably.
If she's around long enough to replace Kirk, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the only one that maybe she won't might be Iowa wrestling.
Right, Rick Heller.
Yeah, Rick Heller.
You're going to get a better coach than him.
You're talking the money, more money sports. Baseball's really not really money sport.
No.
I don't know that. I mean, you could say wrestling's not a money sport, but at Iowa it probably is, because you're selling out the arena on wrestling meets, and your men's basketball team is bringing in 5,000. You got a problem when you've got your women's teams outdrawing your men's team by 3-1. And that's not saying that you've got a problem because the women's team is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that as a disparaging remark towards them, but in the overall scheme of things, men's sports are the predominant money makers. And in this case, it's not at Iowa. It's the women's basketball team is.
I think the football team makes more money than any of them combined. The other ones combined. Yeah, but
when you're talking the money sports, you're talking men's basketball, men's football.
Yeah.
And then you're probably throwing in women's basketball. I think in the past they have been operating in the red. And I think they're actually the ones that are keeping the men's team afloat right now.
Yeah. Well, since Caitlin Clark, they're now they've been in the black.
Yeah, I would say so. But,
yeah,
that's all I've got to say on it.
Okay. Well, I do have a question of the week.
Okay.
And it's going to be another one of them kind of fun things. I'm going to ask the question of the week. This is it. Okay. Instead of who you think will be Iowa's next basketball coach, I don't want to know that. I don't want to know who you think it's going to be. I want you to tell me who you want it to be. Give me your number one choice. Give me your name.
And it can be the same person you think it's going to be.
Yeah, it could be the same person, but mostly I want you to think about, if I could get anybody within reason, I don't want you to think you're going to get Kansas as coach or anything like that. Try to get somebody that would be reasonable to come to Iowa. And if you know somebody out on the West Coast that's setting the world on fire out there that nobody's heard of, bring his name in. We'd like to do some research and find out if this person's any good. But, by the time we come around next weekend, we might actually know who it is. But it'd be nice if you guys could get ahead of it a little bit and say, here's who I would like, here's who I want it to be.
Yeah.
So that's your homework for the week. I hope I hope people answer it.
And we'll reveal who we would want it to be next week, even if there's a hire that's made between now and then.
Yeah.
So
I've had my list a while. I think if you go back about 4 or 5 episodes ago, you'll know who I had listed.
Yeah, I remember. All right. Well, with that, let's do some final send off here. Let's make sure that if you like this content, that you're giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already subscribed.
It's free.
Make sure you catch us. Yeah, it's free. Catch us on all the mediums: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever medium you like to catch us on. We're there. Probably didn't see us much last week. I had a busy week and I didn't get a lot of things done that I wanted to get done. So apologize for that. And hopefully this week I've got a little bit less of a hectic week. I can get some stuff out. But also make sure if you want to bring in a new coach and you want to bring in some new players, you buy some merchandise from our store, and that extra proceeds will go to the Swarm to help bring those coaches and players in here that we need desperately. Outside of that, let's hope for a good hire, hope for a quick hire, and
let's hope for a women's win.
And let's hope for some quality 2-win week this week from the women. Let's see, start there, and then we'll go from there. So, all right, with that, let's round it off with a nice Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.